Is that a VGA?
What?
Is that a VGA?
Yes, it is.
To many, this looks like a beautiful, colorful coral reef. However, many coral reefs and ecosystems in the ocean still look like this due to overfishing. Now, the beach is relatively close to a lot of us. It's maybe a 45-minute drive for a lot of us, and for other people that live on the coast, it's relatively close. And this is because the ocean embodies the world. And because the water is so important to our environment, the organisms that live in the ocean are also vital to our environment as well. So overfishing is essentially catching of too many fish, or too many would mean over the level of sustainability. So this is why overfishing is so controversial. I first got interested in the marine world when I got my first fish. Even though it died, I still kept on. And I then started to get more interested into overfishing, and I joined a marine biology course in my senior year, and I developed the knowledge and saw the importance of a lot of ocean phenomenon and natural environments. So although the fishing industry develops a lot of economic importance for other countries and specifically the US, it does affect the oceanic life and will eventually affect humankind. So believe it or not, the fishing industry does give a lot of wealth towards economics. According to Sharon Weissening, a writer for the April 11th edition of the Seward Phoenix Log in 2013, commercial fishing brought in approximately $446 million in revenue and approximately 63,000 jobs. Now, because of our economic downfall in 2008, this is really important to our economy because the government is trying to provide enough jobs and revenue to keep our economic wealth. And because of this, it actually makes it controversial for overfishing because the government doesn't know whether to keep something that's good for our environment or make our country richer. So now that I talked about the economic significance of the fishing industry, I'm now going to talk about the effects of overfishing on the environment. So the big idea is that it decreases biodiversity. And biodiversity is important because things are supposed to be different in our environment, and they're supposed to work with each other. When fishers fish a lot of fish, it leaves very few fish and very small fish. And you might ask, well, what's the big deal? Well, this actually creates a bigger problem when the fish try to reproduce. According to Eric Palkovacs, a writer for the 12th issue of Trends in Ecology and Evolution in 2011, this is an assistant professor in marine conservation at the Nicholas School of Environment. Fish have decreased in size by approximately 41% and 69% in weight. Now, because they are reproducing, fish are reproducing, and they're creating smaller and smaller fish, this will soon lead to a depletion in fish species completely. And that actually creates a bigger problem in food chains, which brings me to my next point. According to writer Elizabeth Weiss for the July 15th issue of the newspaper US Today in 2011, taking out a species from an ecosystem is very detrimental. And this is because everything works in a circle or a cycle. And if you take something out of the equation, everything is now off balance. And the whole idea of having a food chain is to create a balanced ecosystem. And without that, you don't have the balance anymore. And so that creates other problems for humankind and other ecosystems in the world. So now that I've talked about the effects in the ecosystem, now I'm going to talk about the effects eventually of humankind. So just like Elizabeth Weiss's point about taking out a species in the food chain, it's actually going to affect humankind. Now this actually creates a domino effect. Those fish that were there, now the other organisms that depend on fish are no longer there because it creates a domino effect, and now it's going to eventually affect humankind. The bigger issue is not that we're not going to get to eat fish, because not everybody likes fish, right? And not everybody eats fish. But the bigger issue is about biodiversity. And now things are going to be out out of cycle. They're not going to be in balance. And so I like to think of it as like a land example. And I think of it like fish are like trees to our land environment. If we were to take out fish completely, if we were to take out trees completely, trees provide oxygen for our environment, right? Now, if we were to take everything out, then we no longer have oxygen, and then we can't survive. Fish do the same thing for oceans. And then eventually it's going to affect water cycles, nitrogen cycles, and basically how we all live because everything is off balance. So now that I've talked about the effects of overfishing in humankind, I'm now going to conclude. So although fishing does provide a lot of economic growth for other countries, it actually does affect the oceanic life in negative ways, and it's eventually going to affect humankind. So today I talked about the economic significance of fishing. I then talked about the effects of overfishing in the oceanic life, and then I talked about the effects in humankind. So there's a reason why we call it the circle of life, and it's not just because we live life or we're born and we go through a natural life cycle. It's because everything revolves around each other. We all depend on each other, and without each other we cannot survive. Thank you.